Okay, this video shows you guys why it's important for men to start discarding the false idea of romance and the special love bond. Especially, we have to start telling the next generation, the guys who are only hitting puberty now, because it's so destructive. Now, I want you to contrast what I'm showing you here, right? Humiliated for years by his lover, Chinese man finally snaps. This guy was murdered for this, for the abuse of he's abused by his wife for years. He goes ballistics, takes her life. What did the society do to him? They destroy him, right? Now, contrast that with this case. Helen Leslin's legal ordeal after killing her abusive husband made national headlines. She's just been released on parole. See, when women murder a man, all they have to do is claim abuse and they can get off. Often there's no proof. They just claim it and society lets them off. You'll see how they treat men who get abused. And by all the description this woman's going to give, you're going to realize that it wasn't just a claim. This actually happened.
Into a pretty dark chapter, one that might have been preventable. It's about a man who, driven by intense anger and desperation, left a deep mark on his community and changed the life of the only person who survived him.
He left a mark on his entire community by killing one person, or I should say by killing a woman, right? Just goes to show you how special society thinks the nobility are.
He is long gone, but the memories of his actions haven't faded away. This is the story of the tragic Yishun triple murders in Singapore.
Really? So why hasn't his actions faded away? When men get destroyed, like being run over by buses or murdered, they're forgotten the day after, right? But you see, he killed one of the nobility, even though the nobility was a bad person, a detestable human being, right?
A case that not only rocked the neighborhood, but also sparked a lot of questions about justice and how deep human emotions can run. Let's delve into what happened. Residents of the Yishun 349 Avenue building began hearing a loud commotion late at night, like there was a fight happening. It was so noisy that many of them went out on their balconies to see what was up.
Yes, yes. This is not premeditated, right? The guy was abused for so long. She's going to show it. He was abused for so long that he just finally flipped a switch and went nuts.
Suddenly they heard a loud crash, followed by screams. It turned out that someone had fallen from the building. Panicked, they called the police around 12:50 a.m. When the police arrived, they didn't immediately move the body. Instead, they wanted to figure out what had happened, especially since many residents mentioned the sounds of fighting. So they started knocking on doors, trying to figure out where the fallen woman had come from. As they moved up the building, they saw bloodstains.
By the way, he was abused by multiple women. You'll see that too.
On the walls. Following the blood, they ended up at a flat with a blood stain right on the door hinge. They braced themselves and knocked, asking if anyone was inside. Eventually, a man opened up, said he didn't know anything about what was going on because he'd been showering, and then quickly slammed the door shut. That definitely raised the police's suspicions, so they decided...
Yeah, he knows he's screwed, right? You see, like I said, this is not premeditated. He has no ability to cover up his lies. He's a bad liar because he's an honest person, right? He just doesn't know how to get out of the situation he's in now. The situation which started from puberty, from the fact that when we hit puberty, We start chasing the opposite sex. And what do? We put ourselves beneath the girls to get after them, right? You know, we work to see how we can get them into our lives. That is not an equal relationship to start with, right? So it's open for abuse.
They had to go in. Inside the flat, the scene was horrifying. Blood was everywhere, resembling a slaughterhouse. In the bedroom, the police discovered the bodies of a woman in her 40s and a teenage girl, both dead in a pool of their own blood. In the bathroom, they found another young girl, alive but barely, with severe injuries. Realizing the urgency, they rushed.
This guy was surrounded by women, right? This is your harem of girls, guys. Right? This is what guys fight for and fantasize over. Doesn't turn out to be the slice of heaven guys think it is.
Rushed her to the hospital to save her life. The man, Wang Zhijian, was arrested without resistance. Wang, in his 40s, and
He was arrested without resistance. That's right. That's right. Because he's not a violent person by nature. This is systemic abuse over years, right? By the way, guys, if someone abuses a dog, they don't say, "Oh, the dog bit that person, therefore we got to put the dog down." You know what they say? They say those people are evil abusing that dog. But notice the script is flipped when a man goes berserk from being abused.
Originally from Tianjin, China, had relocated to Singapore under circumstances that would later be explored in more detail. He had worked as a supervisor at a port, was married, and had a child. His marriage ended in divorce due to incompatibility, and he left.
Incompatibility. In other words, the wife was tired of him, right? I suspect she was a housewife leech, right? And she got tired of him and moved on. That's what happened.
Left his job to pursue opportunities in stock trading. It was
he went to gain more status to get the next woman, right? And this is why there's no one to come to this guy and say, look, the first woman taught you that it's not worth chasing. And yet here you are, continuing down this sunk cost.
Through this new job that Wang met Zhang Meng, who worked at a shipping company. Zhang had a daughter, Feng Jianyu, with her policeman husband. However, the dynamics changed when Wang and Zhang grew close, sharing personal details.
She was getting tired of her husband, so she wanted to move Monkey Branch to a new man, right? The ladies, they marry men saying, I love you forever, but they never loved him. This woman he's shacking up with, he doesn't look at her and say, Joe, wow, she lied to her husband. She never loved him. He just thinks, oh, I'm the better man and she loves me. See, this is what has to be destroyed in a man's brain. This falsehood, these lies.
Such as his divorce. Their relationship intensified, and by 2006, they were involved romantically and sexually. Unbeknownst,
she was love bombing him, right? She was saying, oh, I'm ready to monkey branch to you. You probably make more money than my husband, right? He's into trading. And so I'm going to pretend that I actually care about you. I'll give you some intimacy. And that intimacy will dry up, right?
To Wang that Zhang was still
It will dry up as soon as she captures him.
Married. When Wang discovered this, he tried to end the affair, but Zhang insisted on continuing, even going as far as to declare her love in her own blood.
So he's the one who was the moderate. And she, of course, was lying to him. She went to the monkey branch, right? And she's showing fake love. She's going to write how much she loves him in her own blood, right? But later on, you're going to see that this woman that flips the script. She doesn't want 80. So everything she's doing now is a lie.
He talked about how she pricked her finger with a needle and wrote "I love Wang Zhi" using her blood. Eventually, Zhang's husband became suspicious and confronted the pair.
So you know who's the evil person in this pair, right? When he found out she was married, he was going to back off and say, no, I respect marriage, right? But she didn't respect marriage, right? Because women don't respect marriage. Marriage is a tool to be used and discarded when it's no longer useful, right? Now she's going to use it again to trap this man.
He demanded that Zhang choose between her marriage and the affair. Choosing Wang and the affair, Zhang separated from her husband and took custody of Feng Jianyu. Zhang was determined to provide the best education for Feng, considering sending her.
He's looking after her daughter, right? Total servitude. You know, this is the bribe. It's like, I'm willing to take on someone else's child. And I want to show you I'm the good man. I'm the good provider. And I care about her too. And also she's another female. So he worships her as well, right?
To Switzerland. However, after failing to secure housing there, she settled in Singapore as an alternative. It was during this time in Feng's life that she met Grace and her mother, Yang Jie, who would later be involved in this tragic story.
What'd I say? She met another woman. The women are the ones they care about. Women care about other women. They like other women. Do you see? And they're the ones who they listen to and respect.
Grace and Feng became friends at Northland Secondary School in Singapore. By coincidence, Grace and her mother lived next door to Zhang in Yishun 349 Avenue. The mothers both separated from their husbands.
Wow. What a coincidence. Both mothers separated from their husbands. They both have children. And what are they doing for a living? I suspect the other woman's getting child support.
Bonded closely. Their daughter's friendship led to frequent visits between Grace and Yang to Zhang's flat.
See, they bonded closely, right? What I keep telling you, guys, women share, they save their intimacy for other women. The man is just there to be used.
However, Wang's situation was far from ideal. He was not seen as a stepfather, but rather as Zhang's boyfriend. Before long,
He's a male orbiter. Even that's what he is, right? He's taking care of these women and they see him as an outsider, right? Now, this what I'm talking about, this is in for a penny, in for a pound. This guy gets into these abusive relationships step by step. You guys have heard the idea of, like, if you threw a frog in boiling water, the frog would jump right out. But if you put a frog in tepid water and slowly heat it up, it'll stay in there and boil alive. And that's what's going on here. This is what women claim about abuse with husbands, right? It goes step by step. He does whatever he can to get with this woman in the first place. He sacrifices and works. And then when he gets used to that, she goes a step further. And then he has to acclimatize to that. Eventually, he's in boiling water. And that's what's happened here. The water boiled. And this guy went berserk.
Zhang's family began to harass Wang. He said they beat him up and even threatened to kill him. They also showed up at his workplace, which led him to take early retirement and receive 400,000 yuan as a settlement.
Wow. So her family hates his guts. Why? Right? Now, that's what I'm talking about, abuse. This guy doesn't know. He has no male friends to say, get the hell out of there. Matter of fact, even if he had male friends, they probably wouldn't say that because the way men are.
Within 3 months, he blew a quarter of that money on designer clothes and fancy dinners for Zhang.
He's working. He's this is why it's abusive relationship. He just gets further and further down. There's no one. Where's his parents? Where's his friends? Right? Because people abandon men, right? A man, what? Even if he has parents, one, the parents usually don't give a shit about him, and two, he doesn't give a shit about his parents. He's putting his whole life around a single woman. He's putting everything around this woman.
Who had divorced her husband back in 2007. Practically jobless, Zhang seemed embarrassed by his presence, yet she did not hesitate to use his savings for herself and Feng, leading to a troubling dynamic.
Wow, a troubling dynamic. You mean an abusive relationship, lady? Notice the language they switch over when the women are the abusers, right? By the way, I apologize for her voice. It's very annoying, I know.
Wang's tattoos hint at his rocky love-hate relationship with Zhang. Back in May 2007, he got a tattoo of her face and upper body on his back, complete with a rose at the bottom.
See, the guy is all in. What I tell you guys, right? The man is the one who commits. He's the one who's willing to give it all up to be with this one special girl. He's in fantasy land. The women aren't in fantasy land. They know exactly what men are to them.
Bottom to show his deep love for her. Then 8 months later, he added a snake tattoo on his left shoulder.
Yeah, these are signs of self-loathing and anger and abuse, right? From the abuse, right? Like he's becoming mentally ill now. He's becoming resentful. But there's no one to come to him and say, if you're resentful in this abusive relationship, leave it. If you stay in it, it's up. You deserve what you get. No one speaks to men like this. They don't give a shit. Actually, I take that back. They do give a shit. They like the fact that men are in these relationships.
To represent her mean streak, and on his right shoulder, he got a skeleton and a heart. He explained that the skeleton was like the dead god, indicating Zhang slowly taking over his heart. Wang reported enduring significant abuse from Zhang and hostility from Feng. Zhang forced him to
He's surrounded by women who hate his guts. Not only his ex-wife, or this new girlfriend, I should say, but her daughter doesn't like him, and the neighbors don't like him. The two women who are female neighbors who dumped their husband and father, right? He's surrounded by women who hate his guts, right?
to stay in her bedroom, often naked, to avoid being seen by her daughter and their tenants. With no toilet in the room, Wang had to resort to using newspapers and plastic bags.
See how bad it is? This guy, so what if the men are bigger and stronger than women? This guy is totally mentally under the thumb of these young women, or this woman and her daughter, I should say, right? Psychologically, he is powerless.
To relieve himself. Zhang's demands extended to coercing Wang into having sex multiple times a day.
Wow. See, he was even being raped. Everything that women claim happened in abusive relationships with men, happens here, is happening here. And this tells you again, guys, that sex for women does not mean necessarily intimacy. It doesn't mean she likes the man. I was talking about this. What was it? That interview I had with this guy named Board Kanak. He was talking about how women like men with sex, right? But here's a perfect example that just because a woman gets horny for a guy doesn't mean she likes him at all. It's not a show of intimacy or respect. She's just horny.
threatening even more aggressive behavior if he refused. The mistreatment didn't stop at abuse. Wang also described being used as an unpaid labor.
Yeah, exactly. So it gets worse and worse. I'm not going to make you suffer. I'm going to skip ahead where he finally flips out, okay?
She wouldn't help with any of the fees, claiming she was
Okay. Further, further, further.
fight, with Zhang throwing insults and making jokes at his expense. She called him a poor man, and she even said he was the offspring of dogs and donkeys. This just piled on more anger inside Wang. That night, while Zhang and Feng were asleep, Wang was still fuming. He went to the kitchen to try and calm down, maybe grab something to eat. But when he spotted a knife, his anger took over.
Yeah, he reached a boiling point. All right. The mental abuse that he's gone through for all this time, all this sunk cost, has finally caught up.
After all the abuse and everything he'd given up, he felt like he'd had enough. With a knife in hand, he walked toward the bedroom he shared with Zhang, overwhelmed by rage. Wang first positioned himself
We
over.
don't need all this. It's safe to say he went berserk and killed these two, right? I believe if I'll put this in the description box if you guys want to listen to the whole thing, because I think he even goes after the neighbors, right? Now, let me pause this for a second. Now, this is how they treat men who've been abused for years and years and go berserk. There's not going to be any of this, hey, the poor person suffered. Let's parole them, right? There's not going to be any of that.
Wang was detained and began retracting some of his initial confessions, providing statements that conflicted with the evidence collected, such as the DNA found on the knife and the wall. He admitted to the murders of Feng and Zhang and acknowledged injuring Grace, but he denied responsibility for Yang's death. However, evidence suggested he had severed Yang's finger, leading to her fatal fall, while
It's strange he's trying to get out of that one, right? Like it's too late for him.
she clung to the railing. The prosecution presented all the evidence in September 2011, when Wang's trial began. Wang claimed diminished responsibility, alleging he had no memory of the events.
Well, he did go nuts. That's true, right? But they're not going to allow men to squirm out of it like they do women.
Suggesting a blackout. The prosecution countered his claim, arguing that his efforts to eliminate witnesses and dispose of the murder weapon indicated he was fully aware of his actions.
That doesn't work for women, though. Women, or it does work for women. Because I know that I should find a case where, let's say, the women get off. There's one that the woman was just got off, even though it's so obviously premeditated. His wasn't premeditated at all. It was an act of passion, right?
A year later, in November 2012, Judge Chang Sung-on delivered his verdict. He concluded that Wang might have suffered from diminished responsibility due to an adjustment disorder during the killings of Zhang and Feng. However, he found that Wang had acted intentionally and with.
He's even admitting this guy might have diminished capacity. Doesn't matter. He's male, right? So he's responsible. Doesn't matter if he's, doesn't matter at all whether he's suffering from a, hit in the head by an asteroid or had a heart attack or anything. None of that matters. He's male, therefore he's responsible for everything.
Full awareness in Yang's murder. Based on these findings, Wang was found guilty of homicide and sentenced to death.
See, this guy gets sentenced to death, and they carry it out. They carry it out. He doesn't get the old, oh, you were abused by your spouse, let's release you. Right? The men don't get that. Because this is never about justice.
Wang tried to appeal his sentence a year after his conviction, but he wasn't successful. The Court of Appeal mostly agreed with the original sentencing and its rationale, upholding his death sentence for the murders of Zhang and Feng and for the homicide of Yang. Wang remained on death row and never attempted another appeal. The media's reaction to Wang was intensely negative, especially after he appeared to smile and act.
Well, that shows you too, guys. This is why I want to bring this up. Look at this smile. This is a smile of release. It's not a hey, 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 I got you smile. How does this look like it's joy in the normal sense? Matter of fact, I'm going to compare. Joker kills his mother, right? And what does he do? They show this beam of light afterwards. He's relieved. He freed himself from his abusive partner, in this case, his mother. And that's what happened here when you see this guy's face. He's saying, I'm finally free, right? And the fact is, this guy didn't have one person in his society to support him or rescue him. There was no parents, there were no brothers or sisters, there were no good friends. There's no one to come up to him and say, you're in an abusive relationship. You better get out of there. Nobody. And these guys, they want, like I say, compare the abuse of dogs, animals. If someone was abusing a pet, people would say, oh, you can't abuse that pet because that's cruelty. But when they abuse men, they say you can't abuse men because they might flip on you. We want them to suffer the abuse perpetually, but they might actually fight back. That's how evil society is to men. And that's why I'm ending off saying we've got to start voicing our opinion more and more online. We've got to get to the younger crowd and say, look, this could be you. If you place your hopes on this fake romance and this fake love from the opposite sex and say, oh, she loves me so much. This guy was a perfect example. Like every woman he involved himself with was divorced. They were all using their men, every one of them. Do you see that? And this is standard. So don't give me any of that good woman shit, okay? You want to end up like this? Put yourself in fantasy land and keep coping. No. I am scared for this generation of men. Goodbye.